Hey guys, everyone's favourite local Traptrix player here, and today I'll be showcasing my End of GX Battle Box and explaining why it's my favourite retro format. Also known as GLAD format, this video marks a completion of many years' work, including the decks that I and Mangoes and Cream ran back in the day. Using a May 08 emergency ban list and all packs up to Premium Pack 2, it's a diverse format with everything from Gladiator Beast, Perfect Circle, Zombie, and Dark variants to stuff like Gadget, Volcanic Monarch, Hero, Counter Fairy, Lightsworn, and more, or taking tops. Now, format's not perfect, as I'll explain shortly, nor is it meant to be. Rather, it's simply the format and time I enjoyed most playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And I'm keen to share. Anyway, with that, let's dive in, like and subscribe, and I hope everyone enjoys the video. Here it is, our gateway to the past and last format of classic Yu-Gi-Oh! One where the main deck, as opposed to the extra, is still the focus of deck building. DDT had just been banhammered, and the game was evolving. Increasing use of special summons in the graveyard saw Disc Commander, Democ, Stratos, and Cyber Dragon everywhere. Boss monsters were becoming increasingly common. And with the exception of Perfect Circle, pile decks had largely declined in favour of archetypes, each utilising different tools from traps, negates, cost mitigation, milling, and even the banish zone, all in the race to generate or deny advantage, or to win. Sure, the era's not flawless. Disc Commander and Democ are meta warping, given the amount of advantage they can generate. Dad and Saki one-offs like Brain Control and Dust Shoot can ruin anyone's day. Then there's Triple Solemn, which how that took so long to see play outside Counter Fairy is baffling. And finally, Floodgates, which were strong even back then. Difference here though is you could main or side the answers and see them. You had time to defend yourself and come back. There's no towers, Sarahs, Gumblars, VFDs, oppressive boards, or one-card combos to deal with. It's simply just a faster take on old school Yu-Gi-Oh! That highlights the game's evolution from one era into the next. And that's why I will forever enjoy it. And I hope you guys do too. Well, let's dive into Yu-Gi-Oh! History. Inside we have a sheet detailing everything we've talked about so far, as well as tier lists, the ban list, how to make certain decks, etc. If anyone wants a copy of the document or just has questions, feel free to ask. 2 mats, a Dark Magician and Dark Magician Girl mat aimed at old school players. A hero mat for those who prefer the GX era, and heroes are just cool in general. We then have a case with 2 dice, 5 tokens for gameplay, and some spare sleeves because you never know what's going to happen in a match. Finally, the 16 decks themselves. We have our original 8, starting with our tier 1s, Dark Combo, Glad Beast, Zombie Turbo, Perfect Circle Monarch, followed up by Volcanic Monarch, Oppression Gadget, Counter Fairy, which is also known as Say No the deck, and Hero. I then added Macro Monarch, which Dylan gave me when he retired from competitive, Demise OTK, Gravekeeper, and Lightsworn. And then I've got Mangoes and Cream's Creator Turbo, a 6 Samurai deck, and then Because people wanted stuff for mirrors, I added another dark and another perfect circle deck. That's the box. Stay tuned because I'm now going to do a brief breakdown on what each deck does. First, we have Gladiator Beast, an archetype which seeks to use the Gladiator Beast monsters, backed up by a powerful array of spells and traps, including Book of Moon, Waboku, Solemn Judgment, and the infamous Cold Wave, to chip away at your opponents before summoning either Heraclonius or Geysarius to close out games. Additionally, it can pivot into Prisma and Test Tiger to special summon any Glad Beast in the deck, normally Darius, who would then revive Bestiary, to then do a combo to summon Geysarius, who would then pop 2 cards on your opponent's side of a field. Either way, the result's the same. The deck steadily chips away at your foes until you can end the game. Next up, we have Zombie Turbo, a deck which seeks to manipulate and take advantage of the graveyard, setting it up with cards like Foolish Burial, Card Destruction, and anything that can fill your grave with zombies before either reviving and swarming the board, or using said revival to draw into whichever card you need for victory, including Dark Armed Dragon. Basically, you would use Foolish Burial or Snipe Hunter to load your graveyard up, and then you would use Zombie Master, who would then revive, say, another Zombie Master, the deck's most famous play, to then start a snowball. Either way, the result's the same. You gain advantage, you swarm the board, and you gain victory off the graveyard. Thirdly, we now have our 2 dark variants, Dad Turbo and Dark Combo, decks which sought to use powerful boss monsters, namely Dark Armed Dragon, backed by powerful tech cards like Crush Card Virus, to quite literally dominate and destroy foes, utilising the Destiny Hero and Dark Warrior packages. It would load up the graveyard with the right amount of darks required to summon the desired monster before going on to win games. The most common play being Dark Grepher or Stratos to set up what you needed before dropping, say, Dad. Thus, getting you wins. If Dad dropped, the game ended. Simple as that. We now have our last Tier 1 deck, Perfect Circle, a consistent tribute summon based pile deck that sought to minimise the costs of said tribute summons using a variety of tools, including the Destiny Hero package, as well as Treeborn Frog, Cyber Dragon, Limit Reverse, Soul Exchange, and Brain Control, because why pay your own costs when you can use your opponent's cards? The idea is you get tribute fodder to the field, or you use Soul Exchange or Limit Reverse, you then tribute for a Monarch or preferably LADD, an Omnigate boss monster, and then you do damage to your opponents. And to make matters funnier, once LADD dies, you could then revive Destiny Hero Disc Commander, draw 2 cards, and then you'd have immediate tribute fodder to keep going. Hence the name Perfect Circle. We now come to deck number 5, Volcanic Monarch, an archetype which sought to use the Volcanic package, as well as a handful of other cards, to mitigate the discard costs of expensive cards, including Phoenix Wing Wind Blast and Snipe Hunter, to grind down foes before summoning a Monarch to finish them off and win the game. This was set up using Foolish Burial or Card Trooper to send Shell to the graveyard, who would then add itself. Then you would cover the discard cost, or Volcanic Rocket would summon, add Blaze Accelerator, and then you could either use that to pop something or use it as discard fodder. Either way, you grind down your foes, you then summon your big beater, and you get the game. We now come to Oppression Gadget, an archetype which sought to, using the Gadget monsters, backed up by Royal Oppression, maintain consistent field and hand presence, as well as offensive pressure on foes using various one-for-one cards, including Smashing Ground, Fissure, as well as stuff like Shrink and Solemn Judgment, while backed up by Cyber Phoenix and Blue Thunder. You'd basically summon your Gadget, flip Royal Oppression, and then as you take away their cards, you just keep summoning another Gadget, grab another Gadget, summon a Gadget, grab another Gadget, until you eventually dropped either Limiter Removal, Democ, Overload Fusion, or Jinzo, whichever's your preferred win condition for game. Very simple deck, very self-sustaining, and one that many players didn't enjoy facing. But we now come to Counter Fairy, also known as Sano. The deck seeks to use counter traps to control the game state and gain advantage off of them using the Counter Fairy archetype and Vandalgan the Dark Dragon to do so. You literally activate counter traps in response to your opponent's actions, get draws off of Bountiful Artemis, or, depending on what you negate, get various effects off of Vandalgan, who summons himself and can burn your opponents, or, better yet, revive a monster, draw cards, and refilling your hand in the process, thus getting you more counter traps. And this is backed up by powerful support options, including Honest, who, should Bountiful get attacked, you can just drop it on them, getting rid of the said threat. You literally say no to foes, and you grind out the win. We now come to deck number 8, Elemental Hero, an archetype which sought to toolbox the extra deck to answer whatever the opponent had on the field at the time, and it was one of only 2 decks during this era to do so. By using the Elemental Hero archetype to search whatever you need, as well as King of the Swamp, Prisma, and Future Fusion to load the graveyard, you'd gather your pieces, and then followed by using your fusion spells, summon whatever fusion monster you needed, be it Wild Edge to blow apart boards, Terra Firma or Darkbright to establish field presence, or, better yet, Shining Flare Wingman to end the game. Basically, whatever your opponent did, you answered. Very popular archetype during this period, and one that I'm sure most of you would enjoy. We now have the fan favourite Lightsworn, an archetype which originated here in May 08 through the set Light of Destruction. It's an archetype that, through the Lightsworn cards, seeks to rapidly fill the graveyard, turning it into a toolbox backed up by Honest, before swarming either with Lightsworn Wolf or dropping Celestelia and Judgment Dragon on foes to win the game. You would summon your Lightsworns, use their effects to pop a card or revive something, mill at the end of the turn, use your graveyard effects, say Monster Reborn or Necro Gardener, and then drop your win condition, usually Judgment Dragon, to end the game. There's a reason why this deck's a fan favourite and why it was viable so long. We now come to Gravekeeper, an archetype which, through the use of Necro Valley and the Gravekeeper monsters aims to lock the opponent out of the use of the graveyard, which back in 2008 acted as another hand. You would, over the course of the game, use Commandment or Terraforming to search Necrovelli, assuming you didn't open it. Essentially extra copies. Activate it. And while dealing with Necrovelli, you would use Spy and Guard to control the field before summoning a Monarch, Jinzo, or activating a powerful trap to close out the game. Very simple deck to play, pretty straightforward, and all you want to do is lock them out of a grave, because that's what'll win you the game. We now come to the Rogue Stun deck, Macro Monarch, a Floodgate deck which, using Macrocosmos, Dimensional Fissure, and Banisher of the Radiance, sought to deny access to the graveyard while turning the Banish Zone into a resource for you, namely through the use of cards like DD Survivor, an 1800 attack searchable beatstick. As you grinded down foes through attrition, you would summon Monarchs or use, say, Enemy Controller to do further damage before ending the game with Necroface. All the while, you would protect your floodgates with, say, Solemn Judgment and use cards like Roatar to access other tools in the deck. Very strong rogue deck. There's a reason why my friend Dylan wielded it, and while it wasn't fun to face, it definitely earned a spot in my box. We now come to Demise OTK, a deck which, using the Advanced Ritual Art Insect package, sought to OTK opponents before they could get their own game plans going. This was achieved using cards like Manju and Senju to search the pieces required. You would then activate Advanced Ritual Art, sending the vanilla insects to the grave, drop Demise, activate its effect to nuke the board, and then drop Doomdozer or activate, say, Megamorph and Swing of Memories to then swing for as much damage as you could. And even if you didn't win right there, your foes would be so far down on resources that they wouldn't be able to recover. There's a reason Demise OTK stands above its ritual contemporaries, and if you give the deck a go, you'll see it too. We now have the Strongo second deck, Six Samurai, an archetype of swarming warriors that sought to break down a foe's board and either OTK or, once you had broke down their board, lock them down with Great Shogun Shien in conjunction with Book of Moon and Solemn Judgment to restrict their actions. This was achieved via, say, using Grandmaster and Enchi to summon alongside your normal summoned Six Samurai monsters, as well as Reasoning, Six Samurai United, and Reinforcement of the Army to gather your pieces. Very potent deck, and one that players always had to take into account because it's one of the few decks of its time that beat DDT before it was banhammered. Lastly, we have Creator Turbo, the deck Mangoes and Cream wielded back in the day. It's an archetype which, using the Reasoning Gate package, sought to summon the creator as fast as possible and toolbox the graveyard, using cards like Blowback Dragon to pop stuff, Demok to retrieve spells, Jinzo to lock your opponents out of traps, or Disc Commander to draw more cards so you can extend further. This was helped set up by various token packages, as well as the Hero Engine, who would further aid in getting the creator to the board. You would either OTK through swarming, or wear your opponent down through toolboxing. There's a reason why my mate, who's now retired, ran this deck for so long, and honestly, I say give it a go because it's a lot of fun. That concludes my showcase on this piece of Yu-Gi-Oh's history. Hope everyone enjoyed the video and that player interest in this or other retro formats increase. There's much fun to be had and explored, so I'm sure you'll find something. If anyone's got questions, tips or statements, please comment below. Always keen for more input. Shoutouts to fellow GXer and Creator Turbo player Mangoes and Cream. Your video help and awesome thumbnail are appreciated. Please check out his channel. Additionally, thank you players past and present for your deck contributions. May your impacts be remembered in the heart of the cards. And finally, thank you to Dylan for all your deck editing and testing. Hopefully players fear your macro for years to come. With that, everyone's favourite Traptrix player is signing off. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you later.